Hi, welcome back to Renee Ruth Real Estate. Hope everyone's doing well.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
Apparently colder than you.
I run hot all the time.
I was cracking up before we started because I'm like, I am in a North Face jacket.
Right, and I'm in flip-flops and
a
short
t-shirt.
sleeves. It's fine. It's
I
fine.
might, but there's some heat crank. He might be sweating me out of this jacket.
Right, no, it's true. I've got the fireplace going, so it's fine. We'll balance it out.
Balance.
Yeah. So we got a new episode.
Well, we always have a new episode.
We do.
But
New magazine.
so yeah, these come monthly as part of our, I think, who sends them to us? We don't even
NAR
know.
does.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah. So we get this from NAR. So this is the winter catalog. So, and on the front of it is the 2023 NAR president.
He rides motorcycles.
He does ride
We did not know.
Kenny Parcell.
So this is funny because as agents in America, for those not watching here, but that's the National Association of Realtors.
Yeah.
We are in many associations as agents.
We are many associations.
The broker, the like it's this, and this is one of them. But to be honest, I've probably been in this industry like in my 7th year.
Yeah.
Not really
Did you ever
know what they do? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I know there's
either.
a governance.
Yeah.
For us as agents, like we have to abide by rules that they create. But I feel like the other entities I'm with kind of make sure that's true.
No, they do. And I mean, and I think you still have, because obviously, we've got the Lynchburg Association
which
Realtors.
We're in constant communication
right.
with. So that's the regional, and they must be a part of or respond to the national.
The national, yeah. So he kind of oversees all of it,
disseminates,
and then it breaks out into all the others.
Yeah.
So, but what was funny when I was reading his story, I feel like we need to know this number.
There's a number?
How many clients became agents because of a bad experience?
Oh, well, I'm one.
Right. I was like, I feel like we keep hearing about these.
No, I'm one. Is that what happened to him?
Yes, that's what happened to him.
Oh, I'm one.
So, he bought his first house when he was 22. So
wow.
He was still in college.
Good on him. Did he help?
Was
I
that?
feel like parents help kids do that, or did he do that?
No, I think he did. Yeah.
Good for him.
Did himself. So he bought it when he was married. They bought their first house
at 22.
Yeah, whenever they were 22, and and here's also something I did not know. I did not know that there could be licensees that are not technically realtors. I don't know this term, but it was something that I read in the article, and so apparently.
But is that maybe potentially in another state? I feel like
because it was in Utah.
Yeah, so every state has their own like rules.
Right.
When you say a licensee that's not a realtor.
Yeah, but they can still they still do the whole process of like writing the contract and like seeing everything through.
But they're licensed.
But they're licensees, yeah. So I'm not sure what this terminology is. I'm not familiar with that.
Must be Utah. If you're from Utah, tell us.
We need to understand this.
Don't know.
But anyway, so the licensee wrote up the contract for this house, and he was like, "Hey, no, I want to see if we can get closing costs and maybe get the price a little bit lower." Well, this licensee didn't want to do any more work, and so he's like, "You make the corrections." So he literally rewrote his contract for what he wanted, submitted it, it was accepted, they bought the house, but being that Kenny is not a realtor, knew nothing about how it needed to be written, so after a closing and they get their keys, they go to the house, the refrigerator was gone, the cabinets were gone.
Cabinets?
And something else was gone. And so, of course, he called up this licensee and told him, he's like, "This is done. I got paid. This is your problem." So they literally had to keep their food in like camp coolers for 6 months until they could afford to buy a refrigerator. 6 months? Well, he was in college.
Yeah.
Before they could afford to buy a refrigerator.
There were payment plans? Wow.
I know, right? So from that experience, he's like, maybe I should find out how to be one.
That is so great, because my story is I met a girl who lived in a neighborhood that I'd never seen before, and I'm from Canada, so most of the neighborhoods in this area, we have like that, we call them like the matchbox houses.
Right.
So I've heard a rumor, I don't know if it's true, but like post-war, like especially that stuff over on Paramount, this entire area where like supposedly, I'd have to look this up to see if it's true, but we're in Lynchburg, Virginia, and apparently post-war, they they built all these matchbox houses for the soldiers.
Mm.
And then I don't know if you've noticed, it's like streets and streets of matchbox houses, and then the houses got a little bigger. And then the front has stately homes. So the story was the big ones are the generals.
Oh, interesting.
And they were provided homes post-war. It could all be whatever, but the point is that most of the homes here were 40s, 50s, 60s.
Right.
You know, and then there was the 80s here, 70s saw ranches, 80s saw split foyers, and then 90s started to turn a little more contemporary. But where I'm from, like the developments, Canada developed much later, nowhere near the war. And, you know, I grew up in new developments. So like I grew up with like brand new homes on much, much smaller, like, you know, properties were sold in feet.
I was going to say, you did not get big yards.
Acres.
Right.
No, like, would you like the 30-foot lot or the 50-foot lot?
Wow.
You know, so like that's how our lots were sold in feet. And but they were always like newer construction, like contemporary construction. So when I moved here, while I find the historic very charming, it's not what I'm used to. It's just funny how we kind of sometimes gravitate either to the things we're used to or like the polar opposite. Like, I was fascinated by stucco because Canadians do not have stucco.
I love stucco.
Fascinated. I was on a stucco house that was so cool. We're not far enough south, I think.
We aren't. No, I mean,
consistent stucco. There's some stucco here, but not enough.
There's some. But I mean, it's huge in Florida.
Huge. So, like, so I'm fascinated by stucco. So this development that I went to visit a friend in, and she had just gotten her real estate license, and I literally drove down this road of like 50s, 60s houses, took a right, and there was this brand new development, like at the time, probably a year old, maybe. Right. A couple years old. And I remember being like, the styles of homes were just like Canada, like the ones I grew up in. Like it had the same, like it just, I was like, oh. And I remember I was like, oh my God, because up until that, I'd like never even thought about owning. Because I'm just like, and I also have all kinds of like upper respiratory issues, so like I couldn't live old. Right. Had to have new. Yeah. And new has its own dangers. But anyway, long story short, she lived across the road. She's at age just very gung ho. She's like, oh, we'll get you one in here. We'll get you one in here. And I'm like, okay. So, you know, we get qualified and And finally this house comes up, but she says, I can't help you. I'm a listing agent. I have to give you to a buyer's agent. And I know very little about, I know nothing about real estate. I'm a university professor at this stage. Right. So I'm like, okay. So I get this guy that I've never met, and I think he was just brand spanking new. And like so I think the difference was he wasn't trying to like not do anything. He just literally didn't know what to do. Yeah. And nobody was like kind of saddling up next to him to help him out, or he didn't ask, or who knows. Usually it's because in my experience, agents don't ask. So anyway, we buy this house, and I didn't know about walkthroughs. I didn't know about any of that stuff. So I just do what I'm told. And, you know, the loan process, they're like, hey, meet the lawyer to sign. So we go meet the lawyer to sign, drive over to the house, and the fridge is gone. Was not in the contract. And I'm like, and that's a $2,000, like we were just barely getting into this house as it is. I actually spent all my money on a down payment, which I learned later I could have maybe qualified for like no down payment. Just no clue. Yeah. So, or at least to reduce anyway. It's so annoying. So I had no extra money. It all went into so I lucked out though, because the guy that he didn't answer the phone, but the girl who's now my neighbor, it's probably in her best interest to make sure I had a fridge. Apparently called the guy and made him out of his commission buy me a fridge.
Well, good for you.
Which I've said a number of times to agents, our mistakes are costly. Yeah. And you want to double check, because you don't, this is not the kind of job you can just kind of go, okay. Like you have to like, it should be costly. Now in this case, they got their payday, and I guarantee you they don't do real estate anymore.
I seriously doubt it.
No.
So, no. But what I find so fascinating about Kenny is he got his real estate license while he was still in college and had a thriving real estate business by the time he graduated. What? Like he literally sold 15 homes in his first year as a full-time student.
Was he like, what am I doing in college?
Right? I know. I was like, well.
I will say this. There, like as a multiple college grad, there is a level of persistence that you developed pursuing a degree?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he went to school for
develop?
business, so I mean, it's
Oh, well,
not a
yeah.
bad degree to have.
Not wasted. Now he's the head of it.
So so it's like, he did it right, but
not wasted.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he sold 15 houses his
Holy
first year
moly.
while a full-time college student.
Good for him.
So it's like, good job. So now, all these 25 years later.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine a 25-year career. Right? Like I've only been in for 4, and I'm like,
yeah, I mean, he said he's learned a lot. But when I read the article,
4 with EXP,
he had a list. I love a list.
He had a list.
He had a list.
Chad's always, if there isn't a list, he will make a list.
Right.
A list will exist.
If there's a list, I will find it.
Exist.
So he has a list of 5 L's to live by.
I like this. L's.
So,
it's February. L's are for love.
They are for love.
We love a list.
We love a list. So we're going to talk about his 5 L's and see what you think.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
All right. So the first L is legacy. Always leave things better than they were, not just within your realtor family, but in all aspects of life. Your candle loses nothing when it lights another.
Okay, so I'm just telling you this morning I want to do a TikTok about this because we're in this generation where look, I felt the entitlement generation coming in my 20s. I was like, there's a level of entitlement.
Yeah.
It's even worse now. And it's what we're missing with humanity, what we're failing to teach our youth is that you need whatever job you're given. Like, here's the thing, you need to work. And why does work have to be a negative? Like, you need to contribute to the world in some fashion. You could work anywhere. You could work at a nonprofit. Just go work. Yeah. You don't even have to get paid. Go be a part of something.
Right.
Be a part of the world. Then when you are a part of the world, but you're like, this isn't the part of the world I really want to stay in, that's okay. Yeah. Like, you go to work and you work. I was just thinking this number today. You work 110%. You never work 100. You work 110%. So every day you give 110% to the tasks that are being asked of you. Because in doing that, it's like a deposit. It's like you're actually depositing for your future. And that 10%, it accrues interest until one day you actually have all the things that you need and wanted and can move into the directions you've dreamed of. But I think there's so many of us that kind of sit there and are like, why hasn't it happened for me yet? And you're just kind of sitting. Yeah. Wait, and then it's like, well, why don't you work this job? I don't want to. But like, just go do something. Yeah. Do something. Find another one. Do something. So many out there. Like, that's the legacy, right? Because then when you look back on your life, like you were just even saying, you're like, remember the time I sat with an old guy for 2 years? He told me that story. I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot you were like a caretaker for 2 years. But like, you look back and you're like, look at what I've invested. Yeah. Look at what I've invested with my time and my resources and my energy, and look at what it's kind of like we talk about fields, like tilling of fields. Like, look, I planted all these seeds and I watered them and gave them 110% of my attention. And look at the massive crops that have grown. We're just missing it sometimes. This one you're gonna like. What? Laugh. Oh my gosh. We laugh all the time. If in life, it is important to laugh and smile often. Laughter is contagious. When we laugh at our mistakes, we learn and improve. Our best teacher is our last mistake. It's funny because I was just telling Chad this, I think, or somebody this recently, like, even as a kid, like, well, this is sad, but like, even when my mom passed away and everyone was really sad, I felt this need to make them laugh. Like, I've always had this innate desire to see people happy. And I think that's where the people pleasing maybe was born from. Yeah. But just wanting to really have people be happy, and then realizing though that, like, you have to be happy first for yourself. No one can make you happy. You have to be happy for yourself, and like learning to not take yourself so seriously. Like I've said that I just don't take myself that serious. Like getting over yourself, like getting over the idea that I've got to be perfect, or this has to be this, or that has to be that. Like, just do your very best, and then whatever comes, just laugh. Like, because what are you gonna do? Right, like, exactly. Mistakes are gonna be made, so just embrace it and move on. Like, it's like the day I cracked the stove. I was like, oh my god, like $1,000 stove. I was like, what? I know. But I mean, like, some people, they would crush their day, and I was like, no, not gonna let this crush my day. No. The ghost decided to come get, fully. Just joke about it. But he's right. But not to make, laughing, not in the sense that, you're not taking what you've got in front of you seriously, but laughing in the sense that it's important to not be so serious. Right. Not to let it
crush your entire day, or like not to let that set the tone for what's happening. Like,
no,
okay,
the
I made a
undercurrent
mistake.
of your life needs
Yeah.
to be happy.
Let's keep going.
Yeah. Be sunshine.
Yeah. Next one is love for Valentine's Day. Here we go. Always love others no matter what, and look for people to love. As people feel loved, they will achieve more. This gives us a great place to grow from. Everyone needs to be loved and have someone to love.
Yeah. So like first, you got to be open to this.
Right?
Like everyone needs to be loved, but if you're not willing to be open to be loved, it's going to be very hard for you to give it because you're not even open to receiving it.
Yeah.
So then once you're kind of open to the idea of love, I think that like what makes somebody potentially thrive more than someone else is that they're looking for ways to help and improve others' lives.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's your focus every morning, you take the focus off yourself, like your bills or your anxieties or your depressions. Like I actually had someone that was just like, I'm so depressed. I wish God would just take me off this planet. Really dark. But everybody's comments, it was interesting because somebody said, go out and help someone in the community. Because sometimes by doing something for someone else, one, it helps you get a little perspective.
Right. No,
and
it's
two,
true.
it like helps alleviate kind of that. Because these are things that like if we sit by ourselves and go over and over what's wrong, everything is always wrong. But when you actually make motion, to look for better, then things start to shift. And it's, like go serve other people's and then take that to like your job, like see yourself as serving others. I think we're so quick to be like, I want to make a buck.
Right.
But is that like really the goal? And I don't think so. Like, I think the goal is to like, what if you woke up every day like, I really want to inspire someone?
Well, yeah, because anyone's going to feel that all you're out to do is just not to help them buy a house, but to just make the money.
I don't understand how people don't think that. It kind of reminds me of the kids that like smoke outside and then spray Febreze. I think their parents don't know. It's like humanity has this similar senses to canines. Like it's, and I think the difference is it's so acceptable that canines behave this way because they can't talk. And we're less likely to discuss the fact that as humans, we sense the same kinds of things from people. And that idea of desperation or money turning, eventually everyone's going to see what you're really about. And I always used to say, I was like, in time, all things are made known. And so you might be able to put on a face for but so long.
Right.
But you have to find a place where you want to help other people, or that it's always just a job.
No, it's
and
true.
I think that, like even at Starbucks, like if you have a menial job or you think it's menial, like restaurant work or whatever, like I used to wait tables to pay bills, and I used to just be like, these people are coming out for a really nice night, and I want to try and make their night as enjoyable as possible.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
That was how I saw waiting tables. I didn't be like, oh, here we go again. Like I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what I'm going to help tonight or meet tonight. And of course there were mean people, there were nasty people, and there were like things that went wrong. And I think my years in the restaurant industry actually helped me prepare for real estate, because you're just, you turn and burn people in restaurant quicker, but the same principles apply. Like someone's coming in looking for an experience.
Right. No, absolutely.
And you get to provide that for them, and then just the things you can learn. And just, I just think about the pandemic put everybody in a box. Like so many people were sheltered that I feel like I want to be like, get out.
Right.
Get out to the world.
Let's start new today.
Like, get out.
The next one is learn. Always push yourself to be better today than you were yesterday, and better tomorrow than you were today. The more you learn, the more you value, the more value you bring to others.
Oh, I was just telling Fred that today. So Fred, get some books. Start reading.
Love reading.
And every day I pick up a book. Like I walked in today, I'm like, Chad, what's the fourth dimension? He's like, it's too early.
I need more coffee.
He's
before
like,
I can answer
he's
that.
like literally like holding the coffee pot. He's like, no.
Not yet.
I was like, okay, we'll talk about it later. It's like, where's this coming from? I'm like, I read it. So yeah, I mean, we should always be. And then I think too, that's when you don't grow old, and you don't because every day is like a new day and a new chance to just reinvent yourself in the world around you.
Yeah, absolutely. The last one is lead. The best leaders are the best listeners. They know leadership is never about them. It's always about others. Great leaders foster other leaders and help people become better. Great leaders always give their best.
I took a leadership course at Liberty. I got in my master's program. It was a leadership and communications, something like that. We studied the various types of leaders, the autocratic, the democratic. And then there was the servant leadership. And that was the one that, like, clinical studies had shown that servant leaders were actually the most successful, because in servant leadership, though democratic it had a lot to offer, but servant leadership, the whole focus was others, and it was like, of course I went to a Christian college, so there's might have some way there, but at the same time, the principles apply regardless. It was that you were putting the people around you and their needs were as important as yours. I think that's where the great imbalance is. Like, we're making our world the most important, or we're making their world the most important, but it's got to be a balance. Because you and I would probably have done the other, like, right. Absolutely neglected ourselves for the world around us. So it's like it's the balance, right? And that's where great leadership lies, is in servant leadership. Being willing to do the things, or be willing to do everything you're asking those around you to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, that was a big thing, because I was in management for so long, and I never asked anyone to do anything that I wasn't willing to do myself,
or hadn't done,
or had not already done previously. So, because they needed to see that I was willing to do it. I wasn't just trying to give them a menial task, like, this needs to be done.
I actually told Fred, I was like, Fred, you need to tell your children they cannot be above cleaning toilets.
Right? We've all done it.
No, I've done outhouses. I've done, like, you can't be above that. And if I had to go back to it, I'd do it again. Say, like,
right?
You just do.
Yeah.
Like, and I cleaned the outhouses with a hose and sang Foo Fighters at a golf course. Oh my gosh, I was singing so loud that they could.
That would have been me.
The golfers are being disruptive. Renee, we have to stop to you.
Right. Oh.
Like, what? I'm just like my own little world.
Right? I'm like, if I have to clean this,
I'm gonna sing.
At least I'm gonna enjoy. So, well, along with his 5 L's, he said that he also aimed to do 3 things each day. I try to do something hard, something fun, and something for someone else. Something hard, because if you do the hard things, your life will become easy. But if you only do the easy things, your life will become hard. Something fun, because life is hard and we all need to find joy. And something for someone else, because everybody is struggling with something, and kindness goes a long way.
I love that. Take that, write that down, and put it in your life. It'll change your life. Like, it will. I just think I think that people really need to evaluate themselves. I think everyone needs to sit down and have a hard look at yourself and say, what am I doing to contribute to the world around me?
Yeah.
Both, within the radius of the walls you live in, within the radius of the city that you live in, like what, and truly not much beyond that. Because if you're not involved in that space, you're not in human contact. And that's where change is. That's where life is.
Right.
Look, Zoom wants to tell you otherwise. Life is still in human contact. And so if you're not engaged in those spaces, you're not going to grow.
Yeah.
Like, you can't.
Yeah.
And then that's a great way to do it. Like, you just outlined a great way to do it. I love that.
Oh, it was great. I was like, wow.
Welcome to the leadership role, sir.
Kimmy Parcell. It's like, I love that. So it was a great article. So anyway.
Well, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, wasn't that great? Yeah. So the 5 L's: legacy, laugh, love, learn, and lead. So there we go.
Love for Love Month.
That's right. Love for Love Month. So you ready?
Fun Fact Friday.
Fun Fact Friday. I already gave you a fun fact at the beginning of this, but we'll go with, where I was like, I really want to know how many realtors were actually clients that did not have a good experience.
Oh, do you have that number?
So I don't have that number. That's what I'm saying. I really would like that one. So I had to come up with another fun fact.
Okay.
So a little over 1/3 of sellers initially try to sell their houses themselves as a for sale by owner. However, only about 10% of sellers actually get it to the finish line. The rest call a real estate agent.
This should light a fire under every agent that's listening to this to call all the for sale by owners, because clearly they don't know what they're doing. I've said that over and over. My favorite thing about a for sale by owner, I called one time and I said, hey, the word I use, are you cooperating with agents? Very nice way of saying, will you pay me?
Right.
And they always say yes, and they tell me what it is. And one was I think she said 1.5%, something like that. And I said to her, she goes, well, all you do is push paper.
Wow.
I was like, okay, listen. You don't want to get me in the teacher mode. I'm like,
right.
Let me educate you about what we do. And I actually just thought, who was I talking to recently? They're like, how do I sell my house so I don't pay any commissions? And I was like,
wow.
Who was
Not
that?
well.
Yeah, I was like, good luck.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want to touch that.
Like, you got to represent both sides. That's
what
crazy.
I said. You better go find the buyer.
Yeah.
I was like, because you're going to have a buyer's agent who's not going to work for, like, it. I think a lot of it's just not being educated like I was when I started on how, and I always say, like, people understand lawyers somehow better than realtors. You don't see a lot of people going, I'm just going to represent myself in court. Like, you just don't get that. Like, nobody thinks to do that.
No.
But it's like, it's not dissimilar.
No, it's true.
You know, with a lawyer and a realtor, it's not that different. So in the sense that, like, they're both professions recognized by the state, licensed through, a huge entity, and we're you get, obviously lawyers go through a whole lot more. That bar is like,
it's intense.
It's like intense.
But still, like, obviously understanding and knowing what you're doing and what you're able to get done.
The reason that you can't go represent yourself because the judge doesn't respect you. You did not go to school for that. Just like in art, it's like the other agents are like, no.
Because it's just going to be more work for everyone else.
Because you have no idea what you're doing. And it's just that you can't learn that in enough time to sell your one house in your life.
Exactly. So.
Well, thank you for joining us. Right?
Yes, that's it. We're good.
Okay. Thank you for.
We'll see you next week.
Take care. Cheers.